Y'all, if I had $1 for every time I heard somebody say, I got a camera, but I don't know how to use it, y'all, I'd be rich. Welcome back to the camera series. We have been talking about everything cameras, and I'm sharing with you the basic skills you need to understand how to use your camera so you can, stop letting it collect dust. Hi, I'm Whitney, digital lifestyle content creator, social media consultant, and Dallas-based photographer. And here I teach you how to turn your hobby for content creation into a full-fledged business. If you're new here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Let's just start. I have to do a little disclaimer because I feel like people are gonna get on this video and be lost without this disclaimer. So all cameras are different. Some people shoot with Sony, some people shoot with Canon, Nikon, but understanding these three things, the triangle, see, that's universal across all cameras. So no matter your make or model, you'll need to know these three things. So in this video, we're going over shutter speed, ISO, and aperture, how they work so you can use your camera in manual mode. Before I dive in, I just wanna quickly talk about why you should learn how to use your camera in manual mode. Listen, the camera is really smart. Like you could shoot in auto. You really could. You could shoot in auto, but if you want to get that good quality content, auto might not cut it. Manual mode leaves it up to you to be able to control every single aspect of your camera, from how bright it is, how dark it is, how fast it is, all the things. That way you're able to create the look that you're going for. And you can only do that in manual mode. So there's two things you need to know first. And one of them is put your camera in manual mode. So go ahead and turn your little knob, switch it to the M. The M stands for manual. Like I said, this gives us all control over the camera setting. Shooting in manual does take practice. So before you even start complaining, did you practice? You have to keep trying in order to get better. And then before you know it, you'll be able to quickly do whatever you need to do naturally. The second thing I need you to do is figure out which knobs adjust what. Like I said, all cameras are different. I would tell you where your knob is, but I don't know what camera you have. So if you need to pause this video at any time, then go ahead and pause it. But there are three numbers we need to know. On your screen, there's shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. Shutter speed is a fraction. So look at your camera screen. I'm gonna show y'all my screen here in just a second, but look at your camera screen. You should see a fraction of a number, okay? That is your shutter speed. Aperture is a decimal. So if you see like a something point something or a 1.6 or a 2.3, this is your aperture. And lastly is your ISO. Your ISO is like either a 3-digit or a 4, hopefully it's not a 4-digit number. If it's a 4-digit number, your ISO high, but it's a 3-digit or a 4-digit number, this is your ISO. So just knowing where those things are on your screen, also knowing how to adjust those things with your knobs. So I want you to pause this video and figure out which knob adjusts which. So is it, I can't even tell you because it's just so many options. Figure out which knob adjusts which, and then I'll come right back. So my battery went dead, so I had to come back anyway. So anyway, you should have 3 knobs, levers, the wheels. Like I said, everybody's camera is different, so it's really up to you to figure out which one of those knobs adjusts your ISO, shutter speed, and aperture. If you do not take a second and figure that out, the rest of this video really won't make any sense. So like I said, do that first. Okay, so just for the record, I'm shooting on a Canon R6 Mark II. So if I show you something on this camera, this is my camera, but everybody's camera is different. But the basics of photography, it doesn't matter what you're shooting on, okay? Just a little side note, this is a little bit more advanced. Skip over it if you're like, girl, I'm just trying to get the basics. But say for instance, you don't really like which finger, which knob adjusts what, you can change that in your settings, okay? The triangle consists of 3 things. It's the shutter speed, the aperture, and the ISO, and they work together. There is no Beyonce of the group. Each one has a job, and when they all do their job well, you can create some magic. First, we're gonna go over shutter speed. Shutter speed to me is the hardest because it means something totally different for photo than it does video. But once you figure out what shutter speed is and how to use it, it's a breeze. So shutter speed indicates how fast the shutter of the camera opens and closes. This is called your shutter speed. Or if you're in video, then this is the frame rate. So that fraction number is either your shutter speed if you're doing photo, or it's the frame rate if you're doing video. So I'm gonna talk about photo first and then we'll move to video. So faster shutter speeds. If you want it to open and close really fast, you would want to do that if the object is moving. And that is how you're gonna be able to freeze the object really fast. If the object is moving a lot, or maybe you're capturing kids or it's like some kind of sports event, then you definitely want a fast shutter speed. As for me, I usually start my adjustments at 1/250. So this is kind of like the base. Highly recommend it. If you want to try it, then give it a try. But I usually start here. This is a fairly quick open and shut. I'm able to freeze objects. It's just my standard. I can't really speak for everybody, or all photographers or all videographers, but this is my standard for photo. For video, my frame, I usually start that at 1/60. These are just starting points. This is not set in stone. This is just where I start my adjustment. If you want a nice fluid motion, then I will start at like 1/60. So number 2, we're gonna talk about aperture. So next up is aperture. This is the decimal number I was telling you about. And basically aperture is like how wide open the camera lens is. So if the camera lens is wide open, then it's gonna be able to let a lot of light in. But if the camera lens is a little bit more tight, then it's not gonna be able to let a lot of light in. Whenever you see this number, it should have an F in front of it. F just stands for f-stop. Don't ask me what that means. I don't know. I don't know what f-stop means. But the f-stop is f 1.8 or f 2.8 or f4, okay? The lower this number, like f 1.8, the wider the opening is, which lets a lot more light in, and this is what creates that blurry background in the back, okay? That blurry effect in the back, and we love that. As content creators, we love a nice little blur. This is good for portraits, this is good for content creators. This is good to like really highlight whatever the one object is, okay? This is not good for like group shots. It's not good for group shots. If it's a whole bunch of people in the photo, I'm hoping you don't want them to be blurred out. But the higher the number, like f11 or f4, this means that the opening is a little bit more smaller and you're letting less light in. This way you're able to keep more of the scene in focus. So if you have a group shot, you definitely want to crank that f-stop up so you can make sure everybody is in focus in that group shot. Or if you want to do like a span of the home, there's no one object that needs to be focused on. We want the whole room to shine bright. Then you want to crank that f-stop up, and this will make sure that everything is in focus and nothing is like in the background or blurry. High f-stops is great for real estate photography. It's great for landscape photography. It's great for group photos because you want as much of everything in focus as possible. Because I'm a content creator and I'm usually the only person on camera, I like a lower f-stop. So I'm not saying you have to, because it's your world, I'm just a squirrel, but I usually start my f-stop at 1.8, which is the lowest that my camera body and lens can go. Your lens might not go that low. Maybe your lens can only go to 2, or maybe your lens can only go to 2.4. So keep that in mind. The lower the number is, the more blurry the background is. And then lastly is ISO. I left this one for last on purpose. This is usually the one that I adjust the most. So whenever I have my shutter speed set at whatever it is, like I said, mine usually starts out at 1/250 or 1/60. And then once I have my f-stop set, then the ISO is the last thing I adjust, and that can vary. I don't really know what ISO stands for. If you know what ISO stands for, then drop it in the comment section, please. Keep in mind that the higher you push this number up, the more grainy your photo will be or your video will be. So if you notice that maybe there's too much grain on your photos, or it's too grainy, then that means that you need to adjust your ISO. That means your ISO is way too high. And if you end up adjusting your ISO and it still doesn't look good, then that means you need to go and work on the other parts of the triangle, which we're about to talk about. So ISO controls how sensitive your camera sensor is to light. So a lower ISO, like 100 or 200, means that the camera is less sensitive to light. So say for instance, you're shooting outside and it's super duper bright, then we actually want our camera to be sensitive to the light, okay? So that's when you would crank, like if you're outside and it's already bright outside, that's when you would leave your ISO lower, okay? But say for instance, you're indoors and it's, you know, you might not have a lot of light, then you want your camera to be more sensitive to the light because it's darker. So in that case, you would crank your ISO a little bit higher. But like I said, you have to be careful with the grain. The higher you make that number, the more grainy the photos and the videos are. Keep in mind that you want, the ISO to me is like the most important. To me, the ISO is how you're gonna get those. I said there's no Beyonce. She's not a Beyonce. ISO is not a Beyonce though. Let's just get that clear. But you want to keep it as low as possible. You don't want to crank it up for the sake of cranking it up. If you notice that you're getting too high in your ISO, that means you probably need to go adjust your shutter speed or your f-stop, okay? You want to kind of keep this as low as possible. This is gonna get those sharp photos, those sharp images. If you're in a low light situation and you don't have enough light, then it's okay. You probably need to increase your ISO to brighten up the image, but be careful because like I said, that grain will get you. Just to recap, shutter speed controls how fast your camera opens and closes, okay? Aperture controls how much light enters through the camera lens, and then ISO controls how much light enters through the camera's body. All three of these things work together, and your camera body and your lens situation is different for everybody. So I really can't give you exactly what you need, but I'm gonna get you there. I'm gonna lead you to water. I can't make you drink, but I'm gonna lead you there. So whenever you're taking photo or video, you need to balance all three of these things to the right exposure. And exposure is basically how bright or how dark the photo is, or how bright or how dark the video is. You don't want to overexpose it, that makes it too white, and then you also don't want to underexpose it, that makes it too dark. So you really want to find like this sweet spot, and everybody's eye is different. So some photographers like a brighter, a more airy photo or video, and then some photographers like a nice moody vibe, okay? So it really just depends on your vibe. Lastly, I want to talk about common problems that you may have and how to fix them, but I've made an entire different video about that. It's probably already live, so go ahead and hit the subscribe button and watch it. I hope this video helps. I feel like I lost y'all. I ain't gonna lie. I feel like I lost y'all a long time ago when I started talking about that triangle, but trust me when I say shooting in manual is how you're gonna be able to get your desired vibe, okay? Auto ain't gonna do it. Auto's not gonna do it every single time. Auto is not gonna do it every single time. And content is king, okay? So knowing how to shoot your own content, that can not only like make you money with brands and your own personal brand, but it can also save you some money, okay? You won't have to like hire a photographer or a videographer or a professional because you know how to do it yourself. I'm not saying you'll never need to hire one again, because trust me, it's really hard to show up in front of the camera and behind the camera. It's definitely challenging. But for those times where you need to create content, I feel like everyone should know like the basic skills of knowing how to use a camera. So I hope this video helped. I'm answering questions this entire series. So if you have some questions like, come on, I need content ideas, drop them in the comment section, and I will see y'all on the next video. Bye.